the beginning of this journey, I really struggled with understanding my self-worth, right? What was my work worth paying for, right? I was always ready to just adjust my prices and just take the first bag that came to me because, you're starting. You're like, oh, okay, someone wants to work with me. That's great. But I struggled with like, Kaelyn, you're putting in so many hours. The work you're turning out is absolutely beautiful. Why are you charging X when you should be charging
Mm.
this? That was one thing.
Welcome to Mindset Mastery with Julissa Edwards, the podcast dedicated to helping high performers unlock their true potential and cultivate a powerful mindset for success. I'm your host, Julissa Edwards, a mindset coach and advocate for healthy high performance. Join me on this transformative journey as we delve into strategies, insights, and inspiring conversations with experts and thriving high performers. Get ready to master your mindset, elevate your performance, and create a life of purpose and fulfillment. Let's dive in. Hello, welcome back. We have a beautiful interview style episode for you guys today. I get to interview Kaelyn Urena. She is the founder and CEO of Socially Smooth, a digital marketing agency focusing on brand strategy, content creation, and social media marketing that will elevate your brand across various social media platforms, ensuring a smooth ride to social success. In this episode, we talk about Kaelyn's upbringing into entrepreneurship and how she was learning how to find herself through the process and how self-validation for her has been the most important piece of success to her business. This this episode, I should say, is amazing for individuals who are looking to begin a business, or just honestly, if you're already in business, be reminded of the foundational skills that you constantly have to hone in on in order to be your best self and have a degree of separation from self to your business. Such a good episode. I can't wait for you guys to hear it. Please enjoy. Alrighty, I am super excited to bring forward yet another entrepreneur who's doing the damn thing and is going to be able to share her experiences with us here on our episode today on Mindset Mastery. So, Kaelyn, welcome. We're so happy to have you, girly.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So your background is really intriguing, and it feels like you've like slowly but surely just kept climbing your way up within your career. So can you tell us, did you always think that you were going to be in social media, in marketing, when you went to school and all of that? How did that begin for you?
Yeah, honestly, no, I didn't. Not at all. I went to school, went to Pace, fellow Pace alum. I graduated with communications and a minor in PR. I had a goal to work in PR. I actually wanted to work in a magazine initially, and I was like, that was my goal. That's where I want to be. But when I came out of college, jobs were not as easy to find, and without experience, they're not going to give you anything. So, I met a other fellow Pace alum at the time, and they had offered me an internship with their media production company. And of course, fresh out of college, I was like, no, I need money. Like, I don't know.
Let's talk
So
about you.
I
Yeah, keep
initially was just
going.
like, no, like, no,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not doing that. I'll stay in contact with you if anything changes, but like, no. So I went on, I had some odd jobs. I actually worked as a concierge at a hotel. And then I
Okay.
took that opportunity. I was like, you know what? You're making a little bit of money. That's fine. Like, go back to that person and see if the opportunity is still available. Opportunity was available, and he was like, okay, well, you can run the social media. I was like, oh,
Mm.
all right. That's not really what I'm used to doing. I mean, I know how to manage social from my own personal standpoint, but
Sure.
to do it professionally, it was like, I don't know, it's a little different. So
Mhm.
I took the opportunity and I ran with it. I'm one of those people that when someone presents something to me, I'm going to say I know how to do it, and we're just going to figure it out along the way. And
Yeah.
thankfully, with all the opportunities that were presented to me through that one, I was able to kind of figure out my life, right? And of course, it was just an internship, but it helped me determine where my passion was. So I ended up becoming a marketing assistant at DKNY in the process. So I was actually wearing different hats as I was moving through my career. And this was all in the year of 2018 into 2019.
Yeah.
And I was still a hotel concierge. I was working as a marketing assistant for DKNY. I was their social media intern. So I was also facing a little bit of challenge in that time where I was like, no, I'm doing too much. I'm
Mm,
doing too much. Like, let's figure it out. Let's figure out where your passion is and how can you lean into that. So for me, time went on, then 2020 hit. I actually lost my job as a concierge because they didn't need it, right? Because
yeah.
2020 hit, pandemic hit. It was like, no. Same thing for
Mm,
DKNY. They didn't need someone to be the assistant to the EVP of marketing at that point because it was just too much money for them to spend.
okay.
They got rid of me there. And then in February, I had a talk with my current business partner, and you were like, yo, we have the tools and the opportunity and the knowledge and mindset to start our own brands. What are we waiting for?
Okay.
And I I took a leap there. I was very scared because I'm none of my people in my family have ever like owned a business themselves, like
Okay.
and took that opportunity to do that and kind of create an opportunity for themselves. But I decided to do that. And, despite the many arguments that me and my mother may have had in that time about,
Mm,
you need stability. And I understood her mindset, but I was also like, this environment that we're in 2020, where the pandemic is just very, you didn't know what was going to happen. I had to
absolutely.
create my own opportunity. And thankfully, that's where Socially Smooth came about. I'm actually in the process of rebranding into Socially Smooth and leaning into that. And, our goal is to ensure a smooth ride to social success. And
Love
throughout
that.
the various pieces of my journey in the career, I've learned so much. And now I'm here with my own brand, and I'm excited to keep it growing because
Yeah.
it's going to be 3 years in February.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you so
So
much.
you're so welcome. So this is really exciting because I think what any maybe for anyone who's listening who's thinking about being an entrepreneur or is in the realm of like trying different things, like it is messy in the beginning. Whereas like you're
Hmm.
juggling a lot, you're also for me entrepreneurship is always a huge mirror. You're learning about yourself like you didn't have the intentions of doing this, let alone being an entrepreneur like running your own brand with somebody, but this is what happened. And when you talk about it, I can feel that you're excited about that. You have passion for this. And I mean, that's every entrepreneur's dream to love what you do, right? Or else why the hell would we be
Hmm.
doing it? So I think what people have to realize is that the beginnings of how to get there, you're not going to be super clear from jump. And that's
Hmm.
okay. Like you're learning, it sounds like you're learning as you're going. And
Yeah.
the part that really speaks out to me too is for me entrepreneurship is a really big extension of your artistry, right? Because you're literally birthing, creating, these are your concepts that you're bringing to life, that you're envisioning, manifesting, and then producing it literally,
Yeah.
right? And so in order to be an artist, you have to have good expression of self, or even if it's messy, you're simply putting it out there, right? It's
Hmm.
like this internal emotions that get put on paper or on Canva or on something, right? And whatever it is that you're
Yeah.
doing in your entrepreneurship. And so can you tell us a little bit more as you were finding yourself, how you were like, like this is it, like this feels like what I'm supposed to be doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, I feel like it was a lot of trial and error, right? Like, especially moving into the social media side of things, like social media changes all the time. There, nothing is ever the same. So it was one of those things was like, how do I adapt constantly? And how do I make sure that I'm putting my best foot forward creatively and always changing the game, right? Whether it be visually or how I put things out for my clients. It's just one of those things that when I felt that this wasn't working, all right, let me try something else. And in this journey, it was like, geez, am I going to keep trying and like not getting things right? And eventually you get your system, right? You get your things going. You understand what the need is or how to deal with different clients and how to make sure that their vision comes to life. That's one of my biggest things. And I love it every time I work with my clients is, okay, let me hear what you want to see and how can I execute that? Because I do that in different aspects. It's not only in social media, it could be in branding too, right? Like I can create someone's logo for them. I can make sure that that foundational piece where they're like, oh, this is what my brand looks like. I'm
Mm,
able to put that into place. So in that whole trial and error moment of my career, it was like, okay, now you're figuring it out. Now you have a system. Now you know how to make things work. And I'm still going through it. Like
yeah,
sometimes, as an
yeah.
entrepreneur,
Yeah. Oh.
It's not easy because one, there's so many things that you didn't even think you had to deal with because when you're working as an employee, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that we don't think about. We show up, we clock in, we get the check, we out. But
Mm-hmm.
now I have to show up, not only clock in, but show up for my employees, show up for who I'm working with for my clients, and also manage everything else behind the scenes. So it's, you figure it out along the way, but it's also like it's revealing to you of what you can handle and what you're capable
Mm-hmm.
of at the end of the day. Because I've noticed over the past 3 years, I've been able to really like hone in on my skill set and understand what I can bring to the table.
Yeah. Yeah. I think entrepreneurship is a big showcase of your, it's a big dose of leadership.
Hmm.
You have to come in and really, like, even when you start and it's just you or just you and somebody else, like you're delegating your day in the way that you see best fit, and sometimes that's not always easy when you have a lot of things to think about, right? It's like, so what comes first, what takes priority? And depending on who you are as a person, a lot of people have a hard time organizing order of importance
Hmm.
or what comes next, and so it can be a little overwhelming at times, right?
Yeah,
Versus like
absolutely.
I'm coming to work for somebody else, they already have set agendas for me, right, and what I have to do. I'll ask this, girly, what, I think all of our past jobs experiences always lead us to what we're supposed to be doing in some way, shape, or form. So how have your work experiences prior to you entering entrepreneurship, how have they helped you in delegation or organization or just mindset when it comes to running your own business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like one of the most like pivotal positions that I really did hold was being the marketing assistant to the executive vice president of marketing at DKNY. And that was one of the most random positions that I ever got because I was like, oh crap, like I'm gonna be working with a big dog, you know what I'm saying, in a fashion brand that we've known for years. So
Yeah.
she was kind of like my Devil Wears Prada moment. I don't know if
Mm,
you're familiar with the
yes.
movie, but she
Yes.
was able to be the Miranda Priestley of my life, but also show me that, as a woman in the
Mm,
industry, there's a lot of hats you have to wear and a lot of ways that you need to push through some tape. And she showed me that delegation is key, right? She has a team. Let's figure out who has the skill sets to do what. Let's pass that off. On top of
mm,
that, it was her managing budgets, managing different accounts. She had to sign off on everything. So I think seeing it from that like larger lens of someone running the marketing side of a big company, that really put into perspective like, you know what, I may be young, but I definitely could do it because
mhm,
I'm
mhm.
organized. I know what needs to get done, especially in, you mentioned prioritizing and figuring out what takes higher versus lower. She taught me that in that space. She was like, you know what, we don't need to deal with this right now. Let's figure out how we can offload that or pass it off to someone else. Let's focus on the high
Mhm.
priority ticket items. Like, how do we come up with this presentation deck? All of that planning type of
I
stuff. She
love
definitely, that was one of the biggest takeaways. I'm a big pen to paper person. So all of my outlines, whether it be for social media calendars, content outlines, everything goes pen to paper first before I even throw it into the computer. Because that
that.
was one thing that she did. She was always like, where's the notepad? Where's the notepad? So
Mm,
I think that particular position really put me in a position to kind of say, you know what, pandemic hit, I lost that. Let's figure out how we can take that experience and draw from it. And then
mm,
also being a concierge, I was the manager of that desk. So I know how to manage different things. It was a different industry, of course, hospitality and social media are two completely different worlds. But
yeah.
I feel like the transferable skills from that managerial position allowed me to be in a space where I'm like, okay, this employee can work X on this because I'm big on figuring out people's strengths and how we can amplify them versus focusing on their weaknesses, because not weaknesses, area of improvement. But those strengths were something that I learned how to deal with, which is great when I've been working with my team as a present. It's just something that those two particular experiences really set me up for success in that
Yeah.
space.
Yeah. I mean, I could definitely see that as a concierge at managing, but especially with having a mentor at DKNY. Like that was gold. I'm sure that was like so many gems learned there, right? And that's amazing. And you were there young and you took all those skills and just transferred them, which is what was
Mm-hmm.
supposed to happen, right? So you've kind of already said this, but I want to hear it in your own take. You know, what makes your brand stand out? Why? I'll preface it with this. I feel that when people do a job that maybe pays them well or not, but when people do a job, it's like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do my best because, I'm showing up here. But I feel like it's a little bit different when it comes to entrepreneurship. And I've also met a lot of entrepreneurs that they're doing something because they're figuring out what works for them, but they're not completely in love just yet. Or like they haven't, like, for example, in the beginning of my entrepreneurship, I, similar. I was already a therapist, and then I went into the realm of coaching. So the skills were very much transferable. It was a little bit different in like how do we certain things were different. But what I mean to say is I was so used to running in a regular 9 to 5 world for those 8 years that I was in as a therapist that when I began running my own business, unconsciously I began doing the same thing, but it was my business. So it was like, what am I doing here? It was like a copy and paste, and I ended up not being really happy, even though that was in like 2021. At that time, I had like reached like my highest cash month and I was really excited. And I was like, oh my God, this must be working. But inside, I wasn't happy. So I bring that up because like we're talking about this whole trial and everything, figuring out who you are,
Hmm.
right? And like honestly, like what's your special sauce? What makes you you and what makes you different? And coming to a place in your identity journey where you can really honor that without feeling pompous or awkward about saying it. It's like, no, this is my gift. This is what I'm really good at doing. And the way that I see entrepreneurship is like, this is my soulful journey. This
Hmm.
is what I was intended to do for X people. Like life works better when we can work together in this fashion, right? So it's an equal give and take. As much as I love pouring into you, I'm receiving through your growth or whatever it is that you're doing on your back end, right? That resonates,
Yeah.
right? So what is that for you? What's your magic sauce and what's that special like love potion that gets to happen when you work with your clients?
Yeah, for me, it's so one of my strengths, I don't know if you're familiar with Strengths Quest, it's individualization. And individualizations allows me to see the uniqueness behind a person and how this translate into how they work and how they operate as a person. And when I connect with my clients, it's it's about that, right? Me figuring out who the individual is. And I feel like that's a big part of my business because we're creating something so boutique and so unique to your brand that they can go elsewhere to a bigger agency. We're as small as a mom and pop kind of thing, but
Mhm.
we give that hands-on, like you're speaking to the CEO of the business, you're not speaking to one of my employees, because at the end of the day, I understand wholeheartedly what a business needs, and being able to understand the individual. It never feels like a business meeting when we're talking. It feels like we're talking to a friend, like someone we just met. And what brought me to this space that kind of, we, just like you said, it's a soulful journey. This is something we've decided. It's something that we feel, okay, this is what needs to happen. I applied to over 250 jobs before I decided to come into this space and understand what entrepreneurship would mean to me. Like, 250 jobs is really crazy. And I remember having this conversation with my mom before I even entered this space. And she was like, I'm sorry, you've applied to what? And she's in the HR space. She's been in HR for 30 something years. She's like, you've applied to what? I've been channeling my spirituality lately and more heavily. You know, I feel like God didn't give me those opportunities for a reason.
So yeah, I mean it's evident in the work that you're doing that you are most definitely connecting with your clients. And I mean that's one of the most important things, and to be able to connect heart to heart means that you have passion for this and you really see them as more than just a client because you genuinely love what you do, right? And that changes everything. It changes everything. I'm gonna be a little polarizing and talk about this too. And I always respect the hustle in whatever it is that you're doing. I never want to knock anybody for what they're doing. But there is a big difference, in my opinion, from MLMs via entrepreneurship. right? And it's not a like, it's not, it just
Absolutely.
is what it is. I know for a long time, individuals in certain like MLMs were, promoting themselves as entrepreneurs. And listen, technically, do you have to go into work to receive your paycheck? So like, I hear that you're working for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
like a 1099 type thing, right? Like a contract, right?
Yes.
But it's not the same. What I used to do trainings. I'm not gonna dish out who. I used to even do trainings for this certain MLM company. They hired me to give them mindset training and how they could better utilize social media and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. And so I would happily, yeah, sure, you're gonna be absolutely right. But what I learned was that they loved my presentation and they loved learning. They were a group of individuals who loved learning how they could amplify their businesses. Let's just say is what they were calling it, right? And while I supported that, what I saw as I was talking to a lot of them was that they were being sold on somebody else's dream. Now, let me, so
Yes.
you're here selling products for somebody else that you didn't technically create, right? And listen, there's also nothing wrong with that. If you
Nope.
find somebody that
Nope.
you're working
Nothing at
for
all.
and you love their vision and you're like, oh my God, this is the thing for me, you by all means do your thing because then you are connected to the greater vision and it's fulfilling. But if you're doing it because you're hearing that
Mm-hmm.
it's a good paycheck and that it's easy and that you can work from home and all these other things, it's like all those things are true. But do you really want to do this thing? And that's for me what separates entrepreneur from something like that, right? And the client experience, right? So
Mm-hmm.
what this is going to be a little bit of a shift, but I wanted to ask this earlier. This is how my brain works.
Mm-hmm.
You're again, you're learning so much about yourself, you're dabbling in different things. What have been some tricky moments in finding yourself that has bled into entrepreneurship?
Whew. Whew. All right. Um, I would say I really, to be honest, in the beginning of this journey, I really struggled with understanding my self-worth, right? What was my work worth paying for, right? I was always ready to just adjust my prices and just take the first bag that came to me because you're starting. You're like, oh, okay, someone wants to work with me. That's great. But I struggled with like, Kaelyn, you're putting in so many hours. The work you're turning out is absolutely beautiful. Why are you charging X when you should be charging
Mm,
this? That was one thing, right? Self-worth. And then also it was the belief that like I could really do this and grow this company, right? It was one, it was heavy on myself because I was raised in a household where I was told like that 9 to 5 job, you need that. And you need the benefits and you need everything that reaps the
yeah.
9 to 5 world. My dad would ream that into me. He was a cop for 20 years, New York NYPD. Like
Mm,
that was his, he had a schedule very set. And same thing with my mom, right? She worked in HR for still working in HR for many, many years and very stuck on the 9 to 5. And like we said, we're not knocking
yeah.
that. It's beautiful for people who
Yeah.
want to do that. But I saw something grander for myself. And it was a struggle for me to explain that to others and explain that to a family that's stuck in their ways, for the lack of a better term, right? My mom is my biggest cheerleader, though. She will tell me, oh, you need the benefits, but you go,
Oh,
girl, you do what you
yeah.
got to do. And that's great. But sometimes it was like, I was seeking validation from other places. And I was like, you don't need that. You need to believe it in yourself first. And I just finished reading this book called Mind Shift by Erwin McManus. And he's a pastor of a church in LA called Mosaic. Very dope individual, like has this like calm, just demeanor,
Okay.
just like this. And that book shift my perspective, right? It shifted me in a way where I was like, you know what? I don't need outside validation. First, you need to believe it in yourself. And then you need to be the first one to do it,
Mm,
right? You need to be the person. What he used an analogy, it was like, you need to eat the mushroom first. And by that, he means, he was saying when people back in the day, whatever, when they're foraging for stuff, who was going to figure out if the mushroom was poisonous?
mm,
Who was going to do it? And not to say I want to eat a
Mhm.
poisonous mushroom. However, you still need to be the first to be the catalyst
Mhm.
in this experience, in this entrepreneurial journey in your family, set the tone,
Yep.
change things up, and understand like, hey, I'm the first one. Yes, it's not easy, but I'm doing what I have to do because at the end of the day, like I'm making a living
Yeah.
for myself. So definitely struggling with self-worth and struggling with, you know, not needing external validation and understanding that it comes from within.
Yeah. My past mentor used to always say leaders go first. And I loved when she said that. I'm like, yes, they do.
Mm-hmm.
Leaders go first, right? What's the
They
name of
sure
that
do.
book? Mind
Mind
Shift.
shift. Very quick read. Very good.
Awesome.
I loved it.
I'm writing it down. So my yeah, so no, I love that insight. And I chuckled and like with warmth in my heart when your mom is like now cheering you on, because I understand that too. Like your parents had a way of doing things that worked out for them. And here is
Mm-hmm.
their daughter,
Yes.
different generation, also their daughter doing something different. And while I'm sure they were so scared because they want to see you succeed, right? That's what a parent wants. They're also
Mm-hmm.
like, hell yeah, like you're doing it. You're doing something completely different.
Yeah.
The first in your family to do anything like this. And that can be really scary because while they can support you emotionally, which is
Mm-hmm.
so vital and so important, and it sounds like you guys have really good rapport, you and your parents, which is beautiful. Um, you're also kind of doing this alone. I mean, you have your partner, which is fantastic, right? But you're both figuring it out as you go, and that
Mm-hmm.
can sometimes be scary, lonely. That's why I asked
Yeah.
this question of self-discovery, because that's really what it is. And to bring it back to like what I was talking about, whether you're in the 9 to 5 or MLM or something else, that is also your path of self-discovery, right?
Yes. And you know, I will say just to I what I took interest in an MLM
Yeah.
as well. I did, and then you had said something. You're like you're amplifying someone
Hmm.
else's vision, and you know, not to say that
Yeah.
it's a bad thing, but I saw that and I was like, I'm not really making these things. I don't feel like they're gonna benefit the people that I serve in my life,
Hmm.
right? Like this is great. I love the community. That was amazing to see, but there was something grander that I saw even more, and I was like, no, I'm not made for this. I'm not posting every day on Instagram, tell you to buy this, da da da. And like I said, it's not
Hmm.
for everyone. And I was just not. I was just the one
Yeah.
that it was not for, and that's great, you know. But it it's just interesting when you're discovering yourself in this journey and working with different people and figuring out what works and what
Yeah.
doesn't work. You know, things change, and thankfully, I do have a supportive mom and my dad. He supports me in whatever way he can. He's still understanding what I'm doing, but he supports me in whatever way I can. But it's just interesting the shift that you see in yourself from just the difference in what your family is used to and what you're bringing to the
Yeah,
table now.
yeah. And you know what? I'm gonna even bring it up even more expansively. This whole thing of self discovery, it's also what's gonna fuel your soul, right? And so we're in alignment where it's like we both love what we do and all of that. But you know what? There's also a world where people don't need that to be happy, and that's fine. Like there's also a
Mm-hmm.
world where maybe people are selling things on Amazon, let's just say. And it's like, a
Mm-hmm.
dollar here, a dollar there, and it ends up being beautifully 10, 15K months for them. And they're good with that. And they have no connection to it as far as like what we're talking about it. But for them, it's like, this is gonna feed my family and I don't have to do anything. So like I
Yep.
don't knock anybody's thing as long as the end result is what you want. Right? I'm thinking about numbers for
Yes.
some people, like really, really intriguing. It's like, oh, it's like a puzzle or a math game. Like if I sell things like this, then this will
Mm-hmm.
work. Like, and sometimes emotions are completely taken out of it, more masculine. And if that's your thing too, like I'm
Mm-hmm.
for whatever's gonna get you closer to your end goal in life, and that's always forever changing and
Yeah.
ever growing. But I'm really, for me personally, and usually the individuals that I mentor, it's about like, can I fall in love with life curating a business that supports what I want to do in life while also
Yes.
having a good time, a really good, sincere, heartfelt
Yep.
time in my business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My mom always told me in life, like, you need to love what you do. Love what you do. Because if you don't love what you do, you're going to be miserable because you're going to go to a place and you're going to be sitting there just doing the monotony of it all. And then
Yeah.
you're coming home. For me, like, my schedule's not normal. I'm not working the 9 to 5. I'll work sometimes 7 a.m. to
Hmm.
1 a.m.
Hmm.
Like, my schedule's different. It depends on what it is, but I still love every minute of it. Whether I'm locked in at the laptop editing or doing client meetings, like, I love every second of it. And that's one thing that I've been okay with. It's been a struggle trying to grow the business and understand the goals and how they change every year and what you want to do. But every moment of it, it's like the
Hmm.
best thing because now we're walking in our purpose and now
It's
we're
empowering.
understanding this is what we're meant to be here to do. Exactly. It's
Hmm.
empowering. My quote that I have in my Instagram bio is be fearless in the pursuit of what
I
sets your
love
soul
that.
on fire. That's been my thing for years. Like, as long as it makes you happy, just take the leap of faith because at the end of the day, you're gonna
Yeah.
find your footing.
Yeah.
Just be fearless,
Yeah.
you know?
I love that. I love that. I feel like we've gotten to know a lot about you, girly, and I love your the storytelling that was shared here today because it's just a really good reminder that for me, it's like you don't have to know everything as you're going along. If you continue to follow your
Mm-hmm.
heart and you're just open to figuring it out, open to finding creative solutions, open to seeing things clearer every single day, open to finding what works and what doesn't
Yeah.
work for you as just useful data to propel you in the right direction, right? That's all about mindset, which I know you and your partner are really big on, which is
Mm-hmm.
so imperative, you know.
Yeah.
That's really what for me entrepreneurship has been about, just pivoting. Say, cool, data here. Yep, data input
Yep.
here. Cool. Okay, shift here.
And adapting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So for anyone who is, well, yeah, for anyone who is starting or thinking about starting a business, do you have any advice for them?
I would say for anyone starting a business, one, be passionate about what you're doing. So one, when you bring it to the table and when you're offering to certain people, they understand like you're the person that they need to work with because one, you know what you're doing, but two, like you love it, right? On top of that, don't I just said it before, don't seek external validation in
Really
the
hard.
beginning, right? Because yes, you can get all of the likes, you can get all of the things, all the comments, but you need to be for sure within yourself that this mission is what you're meant to be here for and your purpose is in alignment with where your
Mm,
goals are headed. And, seeking external validation, like I said, it feels good, but until you're fully validated here within self, there's external stuff doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, you understand you better than anybody else. And without hearing the outside voices that could be potentially negative voices as well, that's it's not going to help you grow at the end of the day. Focus on self first and then whatever comes with it, that's great and dandy, but just always come back
mm,
to self. So those are my two biggest things, especially with starting a business. And also
mm-hmm.
one more thing, don't be afraid to just start with nothing because I knew absolutely nothing. I didn't know what an LLC was. I didn't know what it meant to set up X accounts, do all of this. Like, learn as you go, but also, seek guidance, seek a mentor. That's something that I'm still working on. You need mentors as you change in phases of this
Mm,
business and as you move into entrepreneurship, you need someone that can help guide you just a little bit, and then you put your own twist on
absolutely.
it with your own self and your
Yeah,
own
I
thoughts.
couldn't agree more. Absolutely. Okay, girly. So I love to keep it real too, right? And we love to show our audience that we're doing the damn thing. Like we are thriving because we are. And I'm really, really proud of you. And thank you for sharing your story.
All right. Thank
And
you.
we also are human beings who go through real things every day. And we have chapters and we have ebbs and flows. So it
Hmm.
could be business related or not. In fact, I'll share this little thing before you give your insight. Um, I say business related or not because what you learn in business too is that you are your business, especially in the beginning. I would say in the beginning, you are very much your business.
Hmm.
And I think it takes some time and maturity and sense of time to kind of really separate yourself from the business, and it kind of be its own engine and
Mm-hmm.
machine that kind of runs on its own with your guidance. But in the beginning, it's like your baby, so it's like attached to the hip. It's like you are your business, you know, and that's
Yeah.
beautiful too. All stages of that is beautiful. So I'll say this that what hardship are you going through in business or in life, knowing that there's a lot of overlap there, especially in the beginning, right? So what might be coming up for you at this time?
Yeah. I think for me it's about creating a balance. I'm very much just like you said, you are your business. I'm very much so involved in my business, and I feel like there's a lack of separation
Mhm.
there. Um, Only because work-life balance is very important. No matter what you're doing, you need to have that separation. You need to have that moment where you're detached and you're not looking at your phone because you're in clients' Instagrams doing engagement. You're not on your laptop for that. You're on your laptop shopping. Maybe you're on your phone just engaging in some YouTube videos.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Like creating that separation, I feel like has been I the hardest thing for me because I'm my own business. I'm working with my business partner, and I feel like they also struggle with that too. Like we
Shut
don't
off.
know how to separate because our times are exactly that cutoff time is not is not a thing. And I feel that in this new year, that's something I really want to hone in on and lean into. Like it's okay at a certain time of day to set the
Mhm.
boundary and say, you know what, clients do not hit me up after a certain
Mhm.
amount of time because you need that separation to also help build yourself. And the personal side of it is very important because like you said, life does its things, life be life,
Mhm.
and and you need time to deal with those things and you need time to create that separation. So for me, that work life balance has been one of the biggest things that we're working on changing, especially in this new year with new things and goals that we want to achieve. It's important to create
Yeah.
that.
I could say so much on this topic because it's something that it's a continuous learning for me too. And
Mm,
like as you were talking, like I remember like when I first launched my business, I was so in it. I was working crazy hours because I was so in love, and also there was so much to learn. I was overwhelmed, and I had my mentors even at that, and it was just like there was a lot to learn, right? And I wanted to conquer it all very
yeah,
quickly. Um and I remember there would be times where like I would check my phone. Like it would be like 10 p.m., 11 p.m., and I would be so
mm,
over it that I would just like chuck my phone. I'd be like, I cannot, I'm not looking at this until tomorrow, right? And so for me, looking at like
yeah,
my energy levels and patterns, it's like, okay, I reached the level of burnout, and that was too late for me to chuck my phone, right? It should have happened a little bit earlier so that I wouldn't have to feel that
yeah,
unbalance. So what I was saying earlier actually just perfectly kind of weaves into what you said. Um, for me, I kind of maybe it's because I'm a mom, but I kind of view my business as like a fetus and a baby and then a toddler and then like a child, because in
yeah,
the beginning, a baby is completely dependent on you. If you don't show up, you're not making money. Right. So if you don't show up in the
yeah,
business, you're not making money. They're not surviving.
exactly.
Right. And so in the beginning, it is like that. And that's
Hmm.
okay. Like honor the seasons. Right. That's okay. And then
Right.
for me, it's like I've been able. So what are I mean? I'm a baby too. We're only in year 3, going on 4 in the business. Super young, you know. And what I've seen
Hmm.
in like growth and maturity is that like this level of like toddlerhood, a little bit older, not where my kids are because they still need me a lot, but a little bit older, right? The business wise, where it's like, okay, you could feed yourself. If I step away for 2 or 3 days, you could still make some money without me, like, things like
Hmm.
that. And so also just learning that, you have to teach your business just like you would teach your baby how to be independent. Just a little bit, right? Because you're still the
Absolutely.
CEO, you're still guiding,
Hmm.
you're still nurturing, you're still the mama, right? But you have to learn how,
Hmm.
or you have to teach how it can walk on its own 2 feet so that you could have some breathing room, just like for me in motherhood, so that I teach my kids, like,
Hmm.
okay, this is quiet hour. You do what the hell you want, but don't bother me during this time. Like, read a book, do something, play by yourself, right?
Hmm.
Well, I'm in the same room, maybe, but I'm reading my book. And, we're just doing some separate
Right.
things for this 1 hour, right? And like, if you need me to get you something, like, sure, but you're really trying to do your own thing. So I bring that up because I think what's given me the most peace in business has been the identity shift of I am not my business,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, my
Yeah,
business has
absolutely.
its own
Yeah.
branding, and yes, a lot of me has been put into that, but now it's been here for long enough that it can stand on its own 2 feet. And I don't even want to reference, it's not the timing of it, it's the energy behind it. It's that I trust my business to be good on its
Mm-hmm.
own for a little while without my guidance all the time.
Yep.
um I wanted to bring something up earlier and it escaped my mind now, but because you were saying that you're having the hard time with balance, always working, you want to have some time for yourself on YouTube or whatever may have you, to just have some you time. um what happens if your business is super triumphant or if it fails? Do you celebrate it like it's your celebration or your business's celebration?
Oh, it's definitely a me because we carrying the team out here.
Oh,
No.
for real?
But it really, I do celebrate
Yeah.
it for myself, right? Like it's one of those things, like for example, we just finished doing this really big event that we've been working for since October, and we were like, yo, we
Mhm.
did this. Like we lived in it and made it sure it was for us, right? Like yes, the business gained another achievement, but when you put so much work behind it, you're right, it gets lost, right? You're like, oh yes, Socially Smooth took the
Mhm.
win, da 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 took the win. Like, no, you put in so many hours, so much work that like my my present to
Mhm.
myself was Sunday. I did
Yeah.
nothing,
Good.
absolutely nothing. So like
Yeah.
integrating those little things, it
Mhm.
helps, and understanding it's okay. You're right. Like you need to take a step back, and also understand like it's your win too. Like there's nothing greater than that feeling. Like, yo, this went really well. This is a great success. Like you're you're doing
Yeah.
the right things. So I think you're right. Like it's important. Like I can binge watch a show if I want. I would do that because I feel it's deserved. You also can't be working so hard for
So we're
for nothing.
I'm gonna
You know
do
what
a
I mean?
quick experiment here. So if your business does well
Hmm.
and it's you have worked hard and to get it to that milestone, then you feel like you deserve a break, a day off, a binge worthy moment, right?
Hmm.
That can lead to troubles in the future. So you said it
Mm.
earlier. So what I love to teach is that these same lessons, you've already mastered it in one area, but here it is showing up in a different area. You've mastered the lesson that the validation has to come from within before you can bring it into the business. This
Right.
is the same thing showing up, but via big milestones in the business, right? So if you can only
Yeah.
celebrate when there's a big milestone that has come above, then it's like, oh, okay, I can rest now. Then you're still externally, you're putting something outside of you to be able to celebrate, which is why a
Hmm.
lot of business owners have a hard time
Yeah, that's a good
separating
point.
because the business's wins are their wins. And I understand how that can be tricky. And I'm not saying not to celebrate, but
Right.
I'll say this. Sometimes some of the biggest wins in my business have felt really calm. Like huge
Hmm.
wins for the business for me, Julissa, is like I'm looking at it. I used to be like, yes, oh my fucking god, like this thing, like look, babe, telling my husband, like, look what just fucking
Hmm.
happened. Like I was definitely there, and I honor that. I'm not against that. You're celebrating, you know. But I'll say this:
Right.
what was a tail sign for me that I'm like, okay, I've really separated myself from the business has been when huge milestones, and I'm in a mastermind. I have a coach, I have colleagues that are doing the same
Yeah.
thing, and we share our company wins. They're not my wins. We share our company wins, right? And all of my colleagues were like,
Hmm.
"Holy shit, Jalissa, like you're killing it." And for me, the big aha moment was like, I'm not killing it. Am I working hard in the absolutely yes. but it feels like a
Right.
win for the business. So when things come in and when things happen and doors are opened and new things are coming about, I'm currently in a very observant space of like, wow, that's really interesting. It's a very
Hmm.
calm
Yeah.
energy of like, okay, look, it's like I'm seeing my baby grow and it's now
Yeah.
detached from me.
I
Do
see
you
that.
feel the energetic difference?
Yeah, I
Right?
hear that. That's a
So
very
it's
good
kind
point.
of like I can
Hmm.
celebrate my life whenever I want to. On a random Tuesday, if I don't want to work and watch
Hmm.
Netflix all day, I can do that not just because we hit a milestone, but just
But just
because
because
I
you
want
want
to.
to. Hmm.
Does
Yeah.
that resonate?
That's oof. Yes, ma'am. You hit that. I like that. That was
Yeah,
great.
I think
That was a great little
yeah,
shift
and it's
there.
like it's you said it already. You already came to that knowledge with the
Hmm.
self-validation point. It's the same thing that I'm talking about here. It's just in a different opportunity to practice it.
Mm. Yeah, I'm definitely take that.
Of
Thank you
course,
for sharing.
girly.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Well, this episode was beautiful. Huge congratulations to you and your team. I think you guys are doing amazing. I know from personal experience
Thank you.
working
Thank
with
you.
you guys are fantastic, right? The energy is there, the wholesome, heartfelt, like you guys ask such great questions of like how we can make things better that I didn't even think about. So the wholesome heartfelt energy is most definitely there and it's what makes it so inviting and warm to work with you. How can people find you, Kaelyn?
All right, you guys can find me on Instagram at socially.smooth. On Instagram and all platforms, and website is soon to come. So
Yay.
stay
All right,
tuned.
girly, thank you for being on the show and we'll talk soon. Thank you for tuning into Mindset Mastery with Julissa Edwards. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast to receive future episodes packed with valuable insights. Remember to follow us on social media at thehealthy.highperformer for more inspiration, tips, and updates. If you found this episode helpful, we'd appreciate it if you could share it with your network and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your support means the world to us as we continue to empower high performers like you. Until next time, keep mastering your mindset and thriving as a healthy high performer.